Hello, welcome to the Sinister Side channel. Today, I'm going to narrate a horror story that I used to hear when I was a child. My uncles, who lived in the countryside of Rio Grande do Sul, always told me this event that was experienced by a well-known man in the region. If you have the courage, stay with me until the end and find out what happened to your Agenor on an old and sinister road. Many years ago, a humble man named Agenor was going by cart to get medicine for his wife in a neighboring town. He was always in charge of these missions to go to the city, and deep down he enjoyed the adventures that happened along the way. But on this day, he didn't imagine that something supernatural would happen to him. The journey lasted about 2.5 hours, and Agenor liked to leave home a little before dawn, so he wouldn't lose much of the day on this endeavor. He prepared the horses in the cart and, after having a hearty breakfast, embarked on his journey to the neighboring town. Agenor was driving along the road when suddenly he felt a strange wind howling, and his hat almost flew off. The horses were a bit frightened, but soon a macabre silence took over the environment. Not even the hooves of the horses trotting on the rough road seemed to make noise. A strange feeling of fear that he had never felt before began to take over. But despite this, he continued with courage, for he was a determined and brave person. Shortly thereafter, he saw a strange object on the roadside. He stopped the horses and got off to investigate. As he approached, he realized that it was a coffin, which made him extremely frightened because there was no cemetery in that stretch of the road. He wondered what could have happened, if someone had lost the coffin while transporting it. Nothing Agenor could imagine made any sense for that coffin to be there. However, as he approached, a female voice spoke to him. At that moment, his body froze, he felt a shiver down his spine, and his legs failed for a moment. When he turned around, he saw that it was a girl dressed all in white. He tried to say something, but his voice failed too. The girl calmly asked him to help her take the coffin to the next town. Agenor didn't know what to say. He was very afraid and couldn't understand what was happening. He thought about running away, but the girl convinced him to help her, and he eventually gave in. Agenor picked up the coffin and placed it in the back of the cart, and to his surprise, it seemed to be very light, too light. But he wasn't thinking clearly and simply went ahead with the plan. They climbed onto the cart and headed down the dark and deserted road. Agenor gathered courage and asked the girl's name. She said her name was Marta and didn't say anything else. He noticed that she kept her head down all the time. The silence persisted for a few minutes. Agenor was very uncomfortable and his horses were agitated and behaving in a strange way. He knew that something out of the ordinary was happening. But since the girl didn't seem aggressive, Agenor tried to remain calm. Shortly thereafter, the girl placed her left hand on Agenor's right hand and said she would tell him a story. Agenor got goosebumps all over his body and looked into Marta's eyes. Her gaze was very sad and distant. And she was very pale. Not knowing what to do, he just nodded in confirmation, without imagining what she would tell him. The story told by the girl dressed in white was frightening and left Agenor even more apprehensive. She told him that her father, a rich and powerful man from the region, had become angry when he found out that she did not want to marry the suitor he had chosen. Unhappy with the situation, her father locked her in her room and, after more than a year of confinement, he ended up killing her with his own hands. The girl reported that, after she died, her body was placed inside the coffin and taken to an unknown place, where it was abandoned by the roadside. She said that she had wandered for many years as a spirit trapped to that coffin, unable to find peace. Therefore, she asked the humble gentleman for help so that she could finally rest in peace. Agenor was afraid of that macabre story, but he continued to carry the coffin and the girl to the neighboring town. Along the way, he tried to concentrate on other things so as not to think about the girl's story, but the fear and tension were palpable. He just wanted to get to his destination soon and get rid of that burden. Upon arriving in town, the girl mysteriously disappeared, as did the coffin. Agenor was confused and didn't know what to do. He wondered if what had happened was real or if it was his imagination. But he remembered Marta's distant and sad eyes and also felt as if her cold hand was still holding his. There was no doubt that he had experienced strange and paranormal moments. But immediately he decided not to tell anything about the encounter with the coffin on the roadside and the girl dressed in white. He knew that people could think he was going crazy or that he had made up the story. Even so, he could not get rid of the feeling that something supernatural had happened that day. He spent many nights unable to sleep properly, reliving the story in his mind. Until one day, he woke up feeling relieved, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He couldn't explain exactly what had happened, but he felt that he had managed to overcome the fear and anguish he felt that day. And, somehow, he knew that the girl dressed in white and the coffin were at peace, finally resting in a suitable place. From that day on, Agenor moved on with his life, but he never forgot the story of the coffin on the roadside and the girl in white. When he told the story to his grandchildren, they thought it was just a legend, but the old man knew it was a real story that would be forever etched in his memory. And so ends the story of the coffin on the roadside and the girl in white with sad and empty eyes. What did you think of this story? Leave your impressions in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel The Sinister Side for more chilling stories. I recommend watching this video that is in the card. It is very scary and you will be terrified. Until next night, here on The Sinister Side. A hug and see you later.